So how do you know if you are actually gluten intolerant? And this is the topic that I want to dive in today. My name is Adele, welcome to my channel. And on this channel, we talk all things hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's thyroiditis. If you are new to the topic of gluten, gluten is a protein that is found in certain grains, specifically wheat, barley, and rye. And gluten may actually be a gut irritant and therefore cause something called leaky gut and, add to inflammation in your body. The first thing we need to understand is there's a couple of definitions. So there's celiac disease, there's a wheat allergy, and then there's something called non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And we need to understand the difference between these three. According to beyondceliac.org, they define it in the following way. So celiac disease is an actual autoimmune condition or disease that is triggered when a person eats gluten. And then you actually have damage to your small intestine. The next one is a wheat allergy. So this is not specifically related to gluten, but to wheat. And if a person comes in contact with wheat, either skin contact or they eat or ingest it, they have a very specific allergic reaction. So that could be like asthma, skin reaction, or even anaphylaxis. So that is wheat specific, not gluten. And then there's this third category called non-celiac gluten sensitivity, or as I and a lot of other people call it, gluten intolerance or gluten sensitivity. So how do we actually know if we have a gluten intolerance? What is really important is that you should not do a self-diagnosis on gluten intolerance because wheat, barley, and rye are actually really important sources of fiber for your gut. So you don't want to just remove these valuable fiber resources from your diet if you don't know if you actually have a gluten intolerance. So Dr. Daniel McCarter has actually set up a couple of steps that I think that is really useful to understand if you actually have a sensitivity to gluten or actually have like celiac disease. The first step that he recommends that you do is actually work with your doctor and do a celiac disease test. Now, there is a blood test you can do for this. And if you do suspect that you have celiac disease, they will also request a small intestine biopsy. And this is to check if your small intestine has experienced any damage due to you having celiac disease. Now, if you do have celiac disease, then yes, it is absolutely vital that you should go on a gluten-free diet, and you would have to be gluten-free for the rest of your life. This is an actual autoimmune disease and you have to treat it as such, very similar to like Hashimoto's. We have to be serious about this and the things that we do to preserve our thyroid gland and to improve our health again. But what if you actually test negative? What if you don't have celiac disease? Should you then start a gluten-free diet? That seems to be the logical next step, but it's actually not. The sad thing is, there is no test that you can actually do to check for gluten intolerance or gluten sensitivity. There's no blood test that you can do that I'm currently aware of. And so the next step that Dr. McCarter recommends is that you should actually start to eat healthier. What does that mean? That means more fruits, more vegetables, more legumes, less refined food. Then he says if your symptoms do not improve, then yes, you should go on a gluten-free diet. Now, before you go gluten-free, I want to share another study with you. And this is where the researchers found 85 what they call PWAGs, people who avoid wheat or gluten. And they actually compared them to 585 other people who has confirmed celiac disease. And what they found in these 85 people is that 25 of these people, which equates to 30% of this group of people, actually did not have any gluten sensitivity at all, but actually had other issues that were causing the discomfort. And these other issues included small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, lactose intolerance, as well as fructose intolerance, and one or two other issues as well. So before you go on the gluten-free diet, I would definitely recommend first go to your doctor and confirm if you may have a lactose or fructose intolerance. So if you want to check for lactose and fructose intolerance, there is what they call a breath test that you can do. You can also do a DNA analysis, but I think the more reliable option is where you actually go for a gluten intolerance test. This is where they check your blood sugar reaction before and then after you drank a liquid which either contained lactose or fructose. And then you can actually confirm whether you actually might have a lactose intolerance or a fructose intolerance before you go on a gluten-free diet. Now, if you have ruled out all these other issues and you do still experience these symptoms, of bloating, diarrhea, gas, then go on a gluten-free diet. Then, if you still suspect that you have a gluten intolerance, it actually may be worth your while to go on an elimination diet for a period of time and then reintroduce certain foods to see if you actually may have a reaction to something else. So the elimination diet, you will avoid all common allergens, or irritants like eggs, gluten, dairy, nuts and seeds, and for a couple of weeks. And then you will slowly reintroduce each food group one by one and notice if you have any particular symptoms. Then if you do see any symptoms when you ingest gluten, then absolutely go on your gluten-free diet and you are most likely gluten sensitive or gluten intolerant. I think what is really important to me is that we shouldn't just go on a gluten-free diet just because that's what everyone recommends. Go through these steps, work with your doctor, make sure you actually have a gluten intolerance. Rule out celiac disease, rule out the wheat allergy, check if you might not be lactose or fructose intolerant, and then maybe even consider doing an elimination diet. Now, if you do actually go on a gluten-free diet, and this is what Dr. McGregor also suggests, is check every couple of months if you still have a reaction to gluten. So maybe you've been clean for a period of time where you haven't eaten gluten, and if you then suddenly eat gluten again, then you have symptoms. Then you do know that you have a gluten intolerance. Also, if you go on a gluten-free diet, please be careful of gluten-free products. They are often loaded with sugar and other refined flours like potato flour, which can really increase your calorie intake and play havoc with your blood sugar, which is something we also don't want. So keep those gluten-free products as the occasional treat, but not part of your everyday life. And then also keep an eye on your fiber intake. So fruits and vegetables do contain fiber, but even if you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, remember they are very water heavy, and you actually might not get enough fiber in that you actually need to keep your microbiome healthy and to keep your bowel movements working as they should. So if you are removing, wheat, barley and rye, then make sure, which by the way, they are some of the highest sources of fiber for our gut, then make sure that you actually get enough fiber in your diet. That's it from me today. I hope you have found this video insightful and helpful. Please let me know in the comments below if you actually have a gluten intolerance or even celiac disease, and I will put the link to the study from Dr. McGregor and the steps that he's laid out actually as well in the description below. Please subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more videos on nutrition and health, specifically to hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, or any other tips that I might be sharing with you. And then tick that little notification bell so that you get notified when I post a new video. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.